Welcome back to the Pig Trail Show. Hayden Herrera here, joined by Kevin McPherson. It is time for your Hog Hoops Report. Kevin, thanks for being here as always. We're looking back on the week that was in Arkansas basketball. Just got back just the other day from Chicago from a really hyped matchup between Arkansas and Duke. That one going the way of the Blue Devils, 80-71. Kevin, it was really the Cam Boozer show we all kind of thought it would be, and it turned out to be true.
Well, first of all, happy Silverfield Sunday to you. We're
Yes.
all having that today. You can't. We have to poke the bear in the room a little bit before we talk about another bear that did a lot of poking. I really thought. I'm going to say it. I think Cam Boozer was like the officials got with him before the game. Said, "All right, you get to play prison rules. Everybody else is going to play traditional basketball rules. Go ahead and use your off arm to create separation on your drives. Go ahead and camp in the paint for 3+ seconds. Go ahead and lift your pivot foot, no problem. Hold down a few Arkansas potential rebounders by grabbing them while they're in the air. That might be a little dangerous, but we're good with it." All kidding aside, this was the best player on the court. That was clear. But he did have a different standard that he was held to than the Razorbacks. And I thought that might have been the difference in this game because there wasn't a whole lot of separation otherwise. Now, he would have still been the best player on the court, but he didn't pick up his first foul till nearly 5 minutes left in the game. And that seemed odd to me with how physical he played. Now, he's a smart player, but he's not that smart. Chicken wings, swim moves. Again, the waving off defenders with his off arm. The play they finally whistled him for a palming, trying to drive into the paint. They should have been an offensive foul before that violation. And it sounds like, is this really the way you want to start off a segment complaining about something? I kind of think it was important. Now, having said that, Arkansas, similar to Michigan State, did things to hurt itself throughout the game. This is not a physical team in the interior. It looked like with the offseason additions that Arkansas was going to improve there because last year's team wasn't particularly physical inside, and it doesn't look like they've really done much to improve there, at least not to this point. Arkansas took 33s against Duke, 28 against Michigan State, and so you say, well, what does that matter? I think this Arkansas team, anytime it exceeds 23s in a game, even if you're blowing somebody out, it doesn't matter. But in these tight games, the higher up you go in 3-point attempts for this particular Arkansas team, you might be in trouble because Arkansas's strength is transition in the half court, trying to get those paint touches, attack the rim, get to the free throw line. Cam Boozer shot as many free throws as Arkansas did, 11. And that's part and parcel to the fact that Arkansas settled a lot for threes in this game. And I thought down the stretch, or it was up and down game, Hayden, but there were times where Arkansas shared the basketball and looked like it was figuring out how to really attack Duke's defense. And then down the stretch, I thought Arkansas bailed out the Blue Devils when the game was on the line, and it was still anybody's game. By hunting shots, primary ball handlers hunting shots of their own, kind of trying to manufacture a bucket instead of running plays. I didn't see any set plays or anything down the stretch of the game. It was more mono on mono turning into 1-on-5. And a team as smart and as good as Duke is, this is a team still unbeaten, arguably the top team in the country, certainly ranked in the top 5. You just can't play that way. And again, you learn, you were hoping you learned kind of that lesson of being a little more, having more of a plan on how to attack late when it's anybody's ball game. In the Michigan State, how that played out. And it seemed like it was kind of some of the same stuff we saw at the end of Duke. And the other thing is that Arkansas proves it can be in a game and have a chance to win against really high quality level opponents. At some point, you want all eyes and voices to say, well, Arkansas is one of those high level quality teams based on winning games like this, not just that they competed well and gave themselves a chance in the end. Did I do enough Cam Boozer bashing? I don't know. I think there's time for more.
Well, I was going to say, obviously, the hooks were a big talking point on social media. I was kind of surprised. Were you surprised that Arkansas just kind of wasn't sending more help on his post-ups?
Well, when you do that, he's a great passer, and they've got other guys that can beat you. And I think That's something we can second guess all day long. Should Arkansas have there's more than one ways to double. You can double
Yeah.
from different sending it from his blind side. You can show late on a double when he's getting closer to the basket. You can come early to get out of his hands. But he's a really smart basketball player. He's a very good player. Don't get me wrong. This guy, once he realized I can do whatever I want out here, run it through me. I mean, he has that confidence as a freshman, and he was already putting up kind of national player of the year numbers coming into that game. How about 35 points against Arkansas? So, we can second guess the decision not to get the ball out of his hands. And maybe when it got to a point where it was obvious Arkansas didn't have answers for him, maybe you should really make sure you get out of his hands. But at the end of the day, that's a really good Duke team. I'm not sure that would have mattered. I think what would have mattered more had this guy been held to the same standard as others. And look, guy, you can't just shove people out of your way to go where you want to go, and you can't hold down, grab guys by the arms and not let them go up to get rebound. You just can't do this all game, but he was allowed to do it. I think that hurt Arkansas more than anything else. And I identified some of the things Arkansas did to hurt itself. But I think, had there been a level playing field just on that, I think Arkansas might have won that game.
Yeah, Duke's got Florida and Michigan State coming up. I'm sure Tom Izzo will be talking to the refs before the game about, hey, watch that Cam Boozer when he's getting in there for sure. Looking at Arkansas's freshmen, Darius Acuff had 21. Malik Thomas had 13. Malik kind of struggled early. Cal mentioned that in the post game, but he came on in the second half, and then Acuff just kind of seemed, just watching him on the court just seemed locked in. I mean, obviously it wasn't enough to carry the team to victory, but just your impressions on what you saw out of the freshman.
Acuff's a really good offensive player. He's still trying to figure things out defensively, but there was a part Arkansas got down 13 in the first half, and he and some others stepped up. Billy Richmond, who we've talked a lot about, he had his moments certainly that were positive. He's one of the two top effort guys at both ends, Richmond and the other being Trevor Brazile. But Acuff, once he got that offense going for himself late in that first half, it helped Arkansas get back within 6 at halftime. And he was a catalyst in Arkansas continuing to not only get back in the game, but take a lead. Arkansas built up a 7-point lead by the 10-minute mark as you move into the fourth quarter. And that's where we start seeing ball sharing. You mentioned Malik Thomas. I thought he had a poor game. I know he hit some shots that were big at times, and you're thinking, okay, that's clutch. He takes a lot of shots. And I thought he got into some bad habits with over dribbling to get into shots. And then some of the shot selection I questioned. At the end of the day, he was 5 of 15, shooting 3 of 10 from 3. And I thought he again was trying to force things instead of letting the game he'll get shots and playing a better way and getting off the ball and letting the ball find him again. So to me, it wasn't that much of a mixed bag. The positive was Darius Acuff Jr. and his offense, and he ended up shooting a good percentage, 4 of 8. That's elite from 3. You mentioned the 21 points. So he was up for his offense to shine in a game like this, and it's unfortunate that Arkansas loses. And the other freshman for the other team was the talk of college basketball on Turkey Day.
Looking at the box score, not the best performance from DJ Wagner or Carter Knox, and Cal was asked about them in the post game, but he didn't seem too concerned about maybe that one particular game. It seems like he kind of felt that maybe down the road everybody has an off game and they'll correct this. What is your take? Do you feel like we've got a sample handful of what we've seen out of them this season? Just your take on Carter and DJ so far this season.
Carter Knox, without a better way to say it, I'm not going to go ahead and give a full-throated he's going to sophomore slump, but we're through November, 7 games, and you're through November, turning the page to December. So he had a November slump.
Yeah.
I know he's got a couple of double-doubles and some blowout wins, but you look at what he was able to not do against Michigan State and Duke, the two teams that really, settled matters. And I think he's still struggling to figure out how he fits in. You getting those two true freshmen are your best shot takers, creators, but there's ups and downs with that, including how it impacts others. DJ Wagner, this time last year, was also not his best version of himself because he was sharing sort of that lead guard spot with Boogie Flan. You look at DJ Wagner statistically, that's one thing. He only played 16 minutes in that game. He was Arkansas, and I think he might have been the leader in the SEC in minutes per game last year. And again, he was playing heavy minutes even before he started playing his best basketball. There's a lot of question marks. Nick Pringle, another starter. You had three starters. The one thing that was viewed as a positive, Arkansas's bench outscored Duke. What was it, 31-6 or 5 or I don't. You've got the stats there in front of you. Something like, huh?
31-6. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and you're okay. Arkansas's bench. Well, you had three starters and Knox, DJ, who you brought up, and then throw in Pringle. Well, you got. I mean, you didn't get a full donut there, but you were close to a donut, and so I would be concerned if I'm John Calipari. Now, how he voices things to the media and what he really thinks could be two different things. You want to figure out ways to get those guys going. I think Carter Knox and DJ Wagner, though, when you mention those names, they're the two players that showed up on the preseason All SEC teams for Arkansas.
Yeah.
And it's a bit ironic that in a big stage, national stage game like that, if you didn't know that fact coming into it, you're just a casual college basketball fan, you would, and then you were told after that game, hey, these guys are preseason All SEC. They'd think you were telling jokes or lying to them. So Arkansas needs better from veteran guys, and I think there's some awkwardness. This team, Calipari's been talking lately about not being connected. And I think he was trying to say in the post-game presser, if I remember it correctly, that they were better connected in this game, and that is only true for certain parts. Mm-hmm. I think you could take out big parts of it where Arkansas probably, in combination with Boozer being able to write his own checks, in combination with that, there were stretches where Arkansas can only blame itself for the lack of connectivity. Down the stretch, Arkansas didn't have very many assists. That's another example of, when you got buckets, nobody really pays attention because they want you to score. But if you're noticing, not a lot of ball sharing, and eventually it snowballs in a bad way and catches up with you. And so there are a lot of areas where individual players, the team, they're not connecting enough in these big stage games, and not saying they won't get there. They can turn a page at home this upcoming. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about it coming up against a top 10 undefeated. The next opponent, similar to Duke, top 10 undefeated coming out of the ACC. But now twice, Michigan State and Duke in November, you kind of had those stretches that were part of a major part of your undoing, that you can look at yourself in the mirror. And at that point, you can't necessarily blame officiating or other things.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will take a quick break. And like Kevin mentioned, the schedule just gets juicier from here. We'll look at this week's opponents that comes to Bud Walton Arena when we return on the Hog Hoops Report. Welcome back to the Hog Hoops Report. Hayden Herrera alongside Kevin McPherson. We've been going over this Arkansas-Duke game that ended with a 80-71 Blue Devils victory. Kevin, looking at the stat sheet, the box score, we've been talking a lot about the front court this season, what kind of role they'll play under year 2 of John Calipari. It looks like TB, Trevor Brazil, at 11 and 11 on the night against the Blue Devils. Malik Ewan, 7 points, three rebounds, and Nick Pringle in a starting spot, just 3 points, 1 rebound. What were you? It's been a big question all season. What is that role going to be like for Cal's team? What did you see out of those guys?
I saw them get exposed by Cam Boozer. Regardless of the things I complained about, I didn't launch any official complaint with college basketball, by the way. Just blowing off steam. But look, those guys got exposed. And I think Arkansas lacks physicality. They lack an enforcer in the paint. You thought maybe Nick Pringle, some combination with Ewan, who was a big-time rebounder. 7.6 boards per game last year at Florida State, and only like 26 minutes a game, 26 minutes. That is really high-volume rebounding, and he got them at both ends, and you're just not seeing that. He played 20 minutes and had 3 rebounds. Very much a finesse player, but a lot, in addition to not necessarily being the most physical guy, seems like he gets caught flat-footed, not getting back in transition like you might want to see. Nick Pringle plays in foul trouble, and then to see him get the minutes, even the minutes maybe that he got, and he's still not getting very many rebounds. So a lot of problems and question marks there. Trevor Brazile was a bright spot in most ways. No, he's never been a low post defender, and so you're only going to get so much out of him. In fact, he had some decent possessions defending Boozer. You're not going to win them all and lose them all, but 11 and 11, and he's played Duke twice in the last 3 years, and he had a double-double when Arkansas beat Duke 3 years ago at Bud Walton Arena, the first ever ACC-SEC challenge. That night he had 19, 11, and 2 blocks. And so this time around, 11 points, got most of those in the first half, I think 9 of them. And I think he had 9 and 7 at halftime, 9 and 6 or 9 and 7. So you thought, oh, he's trending to have a similar game as the first time, a couple of years ago. And then the second half, not as much from him offensively. So I thought he was a bright spot. I thought he and Billy Richmond, the third, competed really hard at both ends, and to Arkansas's benefit. And so can't completely throw the full front line and under the bus. Arkansas had some success in transition, 14-5 plus 9 there. But the turnover battle, 12 turnovers apiece, and Arkansas only plus 3 in points off turnovers. You wanted that gap and margin to be a little greater in Arkansas's advantage, because you got to find a way to offset some of the problems we just talked about the front line. Let me give you another stat. Arkansas minus 15 in second chance points. That's coming off the offensive glass work. So Duke gets 12 offensive rebounds, 25 second chance points. Arkansas, 10 offensive rebounds, not far behind in the number there, but only 10 second chance points. And so sometimes stats are tricky. You thought you stayed close on the offensive glass, making the team comparison, but what you did with those offensive rebounds, it was a blowout there for Duke. And again, Boozer getting to the line as much as he did, and apparently no one saw fit to let his fouls that they didn't call send Arkansas players to the line. He shot as many free throws as Arkansas, and that was more of that physical blue-collar stat. Duke shoots 21 free throws, Arkansas only 11. So Arkansas's got to be better. They were in fast break. It just wasn't enough, and you needed probably more off the transition numbers because you got more turnovers or enforced more than you did, or had fewer of your own, so that the gap was wider. And then those points off turnovers maybe a little more in your favor. You needed to win other areas better than Arkansas did to win this game.
Well, you mentioned it, but we've got another ACC SEC challenge coming up on Wednesday when Louisville, however you like to pronounce it, you can get really in there with the no syllables. A lovely town. A lovely town. Coach Cal has a lot of history facing the Cardinals, and this is a Cardinals team that has a win over Kentucky this season. So, a big game on Wednesday. I'm sure a game that Ryan Silverfield will probably be introduced at in front of the Bud Walton Arena crowd. But just looking at this Louisville team, what jumps out to you?
Well, they're unbeaten. Mikael Brown, another freshman, projected as a lottery pick. So Arkansas right now is in that part of the season where some of these big matchups, you're comparing what was a loaded 2025 class, but it's, Arkansas is not the only program with shiny new toys. And so Mikael Brown, they've got other good pieces on that team, but a top 10 rank, I think they're 7th coming into, as we will see where they're at on Monday, 6th or 7th is where they're at now. And it's another challenge. I mean, honestly, Arkansas playing at home, you would think has advantage here. Arkansas needs a quality win, period. Last year, Calipari's first season, they didn't get a quality win in November. And they only got one in December before they rolled into the SEC. And that one win over Michigan on a neutral site was probably the difference between getting an at-large bid as a 10 seed and not making the NCAA tournament, as it turned out. So you don't want to take for granted that you're going to get enough wins in your league, especially when you started 0-5 last year. This team, with the retention and how talented these freshmen are and what you thought you were doing in the portal, you didn't think you were going to have these same concerns. So for folks saying it's still early, yeah, it's still early, but you got to start picking up quality wins, I say now, not knowing what else is down the road in terms of what adversity or what might challenge this team, which only goes 8 deep and still a lot of question marks, including the backcourt, not just the front line. So Louisville's that first opportunity at home. That's the one thing Arkansas didn't have last year, is a quality opponent at home in the non-conference schedule. You're getting that because it's your turn to host the ACC SEC Challenge. Arkansas's 2-0 in this event. I mentioned beating Duke 2 years ago. Last year, it was Miami on the road. High major, but that wasn't really a quality road win. It was a pitiful Miami team in a really not kind of an anemic ACC. This time around, the ACC looks better, and certainly Louisville looks good. And this would be, once the net rankings come out, you get a win like this, it's a quad one win. And it also kind of good medicine for the losses to Michigan State and Duke in November. And you put that behind you. And now you're ramping things up saying, okay, come on, Texas Tech and Dallas. Come on, Houston in the Big Apple area. But you got to get that first quality win, in Louisville's that first opportunity. And I look for Arkansas. I don't know how much better and more competitive they can be on the glass. Some of the things we've seen maybe starting to rear its head as an identity on some of the stuff that is a challenge. That means you've got to be really good at playing to your strengths. Cut down on those 3-point attempts. Get back to sharing the basketball. Make it a priority to get paint touches, attack the rim, run up those free throw attempts, get out in transition. This is the one strength of Arkansas's, getting out on the break after live ball turnovers, after defensive rebounds, even some makes, because they get some secondary transition even after opponents made field goals. But they've got to stick to a consistent formula of making that the priority. And I think they wander away from that too often.
You mentioned that December schedule with those 3 ranked teams. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if they don't get this win here, what is the sense of urgency? I mean, 2-1 in those 3 games. I feel like that has to be kind of a goal at least. Going 1-2 or 0-3, it feels like once that SEC schedule hits, there might be some legit concern.
Well, I think if you go 1-2 in these next 3. You're going to have concerns going into this SEC because it's a double-edged sword. The SEC is not as good as it was last year. And it's not even the best conference in college basketball based on the head-to-head with the other power leagues. And so while there are going to be plenty of quad one-win opportunities and quality games, you're not going to go 8-10 necessarily and get into the NCAA tournament. And so you're going to have to be really good in your league or you could be a mid team in your league, and nobody wants to forecast that and say, well, why are we hoping for that anyway? You're not, but you're hoping you make the NCAA tournament. You got to get some quality wins now. That's part of the assessment. The other part is whether you do enough to scrape by or get in, your chances of backing up, if your chances of backing up what preseason expectations were are much harder when you look at the NCAA tournament seeding you might be playing toward by not picking up enough quality wins, which makes it harder for you to win in advance. I mean, as a 10 seed, Arkansas was the Cinderella last year to the Sweet 16. That is not a formula to keep trying to do every year. It's just going to bite you. So Arkansas's got to start getting wins now against quality.
One last question before we go. Obviously, we focused on Wednesday with Louisville. Arkansas is in North Little Rock on Saturday, taking on Fresno State. We all know how fans feel about football games being played in Little Rock, but just as someone that's covered this program for a while, just your take on the atmosphere in those types of games in North Little Rock when the Hogs head down there to play on that hardwood.
Well, it's a vastly superior atmosphere to what Bud Walton Arena offers this time of year, because you're playing a lot of bye games. Now, the Arkansas's had some weird results in Central Arkansas, and especially in the down years in the program. But it's one game a year, and that's why the atmosphere is better, because fans that don't typically make it up to Fayetteville from all corners of the state, Little Rock centrally located, it's an opportunity for those fans. And it's the largest population center as well in the state. So it's a chance for those fans to come out and support the Razorbacks. So the energy is always really high. The place is packed, 16,000 plus fans. And that's probably, twice as many as you typically see at Bud Walton Arena in November and December for these level of teams that come in. So I think it's a great college basketball atmosphere. It's also, technically, it counts as a home game on the when you look at how net rankings are and your strength of your schedule and all these different things and what's considered the quad wins. So there's not a ton of advantage of playing away from Bud Walton Arena in that sense. But Arkansas will be favored to win and should win, and we'll see if Arkansas is still a ranked team on Monday. 22nd coming into the loss against Duke, maybe out of the poll, maybe not. But, they've had a couple of close calls already against mid-majors. We haven't talked about that, and so, Mountain West team coming in, and we'll see what Arkansas does in North Little Rock at Simmons Bank Arena on Saturday. But really, all eyes are on that Louisville game. If Arkansas stacks a couple of wins there, when we're back on next Sunday, we're going to be singing a different tune. It's been more probably thumbs down than thumbs up in this segment, Hayden.
Yeah.
Double H. But I think it's warranted right now. You got to go prove it. You got to prove it in these kind of games. And yeah, it's a tough schedule. And I didn't expect Arkansas to win them all, but they continue to do some of the same things that was, led to losing last year in some of these bigger matchups. And so you're waiting for Arkansas to be good in November and December. Of course, February, March matters more. And so, but right now we're in this moment, and you want to see Arkansas start to build its resume so that it's not hoping to get an NCAA tournament or hoping for a favorable enough bid not to be an 8 or 9 seed.
All right, 2 games at 2 different Arkansas sites for the Razorbacks this week. And, we'll talk all about it next Sunday. Kevin McPherson, thanks as always for joining us. You can follow him on social media at AR Hoop Scoop. Until then, we'll get more Pig Trail coming up right after the break. Stay tuned.